The scene opens with Hana stepping into the Valentine's Day safe house, finally reaching her destination. The atmosphere is tense and purposeful as she surveys her new environment. The safe house bears the weight of history within its walls, specifically tied to Valentine's Day operations that have taken place here before. Her eyes take in the methodical preparations that are clearly underway. Weapons have been carefully arranged and organized, each piece positioned with precision and ready for immediate deployment in whatever operation is about to unfold. Standing amid this arsenal of prepared weaponry, Hana's mind begins to wander and question the circumstances that have led her to this moment. A wave of uncertainty washes over her as she contemplates the decisions and events that have brought her to this safe house. She finds herself wondering what exactly her brother has involved her in, what kind of dangerous situation he has drawn her into, without her full understanding of the consequences. Despite her growing concerns and the weight of the unknown pressing down on her, she maintains a thread of hope, clinging to the belief that her brother will somehow reach out to her, that he will send her some form of communication or sign that proves he is still alive and well. Her contemplation is suddenly broken by the sharp ring of her phone. Logan's voice comes through the line, making contact to check on her current status and situation. Hana responds to his inquiry by informing him that everything appears calm and peaceful from her perspective. However, she adds a note of unease to her report, expressing that the quietness around her feels almost unnatural, too quiet in fact, which makes her suspicious that something might be brewing beneath the surface. With Logan still on the line, Hana decides to voice a question that has been persistently troubling her thoughts. She asks directly about Eun Yu and whether he is genuinely a member of the Valentine's Day organization. Her suspicion has been growing because she observed that he was not wearing one of the distinctive badges that she understands to be standard identification for Valentine's Day operatives. Logan's response to her pointed question is notably evasive. He remains completely silent on the matter of Eun affiliation, neither confirming nor denying her suspicions. Instead, he shifts the conversation by acknowledging the complications that arise from someone named Leu, presenting this person as a significant challenge they must navigate. The mention of Leu's name catches Hana completely off guard. This is the first time she has encountered this name, and her confusion is evident as she asks Logan for clarification about who Leu is. Her question hangs in the air as she suddenly becomes aware that she is no longer alone in the safe house. Leu has appeared seemingly out of nowhere, materializing in the space without warning. The unexpected appearance of this stranger triggers Hana's training and survival instincts immediately. Her hand moves swiftly to her weapon, drawing her gun and training it directly on the intruder as her heart rate spikes with adrenaline. With her firearm pointed steadily at him, Leu remains remarkably calm and composed despite having a gun aimed at his chest. He introduces himself with a casual demeanor, stating his name as Edward Leu and mentioning that this is how he is known in the United States. Logan's voice crackles through the phone line that is still active, reminding Hana that he had indeed warned her about Leu's presence and involvement in the current situation. Feeling overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events and the tension of the moment, Hana makes the decision to terminate her conversation with Logan, abruptly ending the phone call. With Logan no longer on the line, Hana focuses her full attention on Leu, who stands before her with an air of casual confidence that only increases her wariness. His unexpected appearance in the safe house has left her completely puzzled and demanding answers. She wants to know how he got there, why he's there, and what his intentions are. Leu responds to her obvious confusion and suspicion with a playful tone, suggesting somewhat lightheartedly that he thought she might be experiencing boredom in the safe house and decided to provide some company or entertainment. However, when Hana presses him for a more serious and detailed explanation, Leu's demeanor shifts slightly as he provides her with more substantial information. He reveals that his presence in Cambodia is not random or casual. He has personal business to conduct in the country. More specifically, he explains that he has a score to settle with an organization called Mesa. As he elaborates on this revelation, Leu provides Hana with crucial background information about Mesa's operations and significance. Mesa, according to Leu's explanation, is a powerful syndicate that he has been actively investigating. They operate as one of the major drug cartels that has established a tight and controlling grip over Cambodia's criminal underworld. Their influence and power in the region make them a formidable organization to contend with. Leu goes on to detail the specific grievances he holds against Mesa, explaining that their criminal activities have extended beyond simple drug trafficking. The organization has committed theft against Parenti, stealing valuable assets or resources that belong to him. Even more seriously, Mesa has been involved in a murder that has direct connections to the Sicilian mafia, making their crimes international in scope and creating dangerous ripple effects across multiple criminal organizations. Upon hearing this detailed explanation about Mesa and their criminal activities, Hana finds herself even more bewildered and confused. She struggles to understand how and why Yoon-seong has become involved in such a complex web of international criminal activity. The connections between all these different players and organizations seem overwhelming and dangerous. Seeking some form of reassurance in this chaotic situation, she directly asks Leu whether his presence and his personal vendetta against Mesa will interfere with or complicate her own mission objectives. Leu responds to her concerns with what appears to be genuine reassurance. He tells her that he has no intention of becoming a hindrance or obstacle to her mission. Instead, he proposes that they maintain the operational plan that was already established before his involvement. According to his suggestion, Hana should continue to focus on her assigned target, taking care of Giulio Parenti as originally planned. Meanwhile, Leu will handle his personal business with Mesa separately, theoretically allowing both of them to accomplish their respective goals without interfering with each other. Despite Leu's reassurances and his seemingly reasonable proposal, Hana cannot shake the deep suspicion that continues to gnaw at her. Her instincts tell her that something about this situation and about Leu himself is not entirely truthful or straightforward. Acting on these suspicions, she suddenly moves forward and grabs Leu's shirt, pulling him closer as she confronts him directly with her doubts. She insists firmly that he is not actually a Valentine's Day agent, challenging his claimed affiliation with the organization. Leu's response to her accusation comes with a chuckle that suggests he finds her suspicions somewhat amusing rather than threatening. He clarifies his position by pointing out that he never actually claimed to be an official agent of Valentine's Day. Instead, he explains that his offer was simply to provide assistance and support to her during her time operating in Cambodia. This clarification, while technically accurate, does little to ease Hana's concerns about his true motivations and allegiances. Just as the tension between Hana and Leu appears to be settling into a more manageable level, the situation takes another dramatic turn. Hana's phone rings once again, interrupting their conversation and bringing Logan back into communication with her. Logan's voice carries urgent information that immediately shifts the focus of the conversation from questions of identity and allegiance to immediate operational concerns. Logan informs Hana that Mesa is no longer stationary. They are currently on the move and advancing toward a specific set of coordinates. The intelligence indicates that Mesa will reach the designated location within a time frame of 3 hours, giving them a limited window to prepare for whatever confrontation or operation is about to unfold. Logan continues his briefing by providing Hana with detailed information about the scope and scale of what they're about to face. The picture Logan paints is both comprehensive and daunting. Mesa is not traveling as a small, easily manageable group. Instead, they are moving as a heavily armed convoy that represents a significant military-style force. The convoy consists of 40 individuals, each of whom is heavily armed and presumably trained for combat situations. These 40 operatives are traveling in a substantial vehicle formation that includes a large trailer, 2 shipping containers that likely contain additional weapons or supplies, and 6 trucks that provide both transportation and tactical flexibility. Logan's briefing becomes even more concerning as he reveals additional intelligence about their adversary's awareness of the situation. Giulio Parenti has somehow become aware of Mesa's movements and current activities. Rather than remaining passive or defensive, Parenti has made the decision to actively pursue Mesa, adding another dynamic element to an already complex operational environment. This development means that multiple parties are now moving toward what could become a multi-sided confrontation. With all of this information now laid out before her, Logan presents Hana with the ultimate question that will determine how the operation proceeds. Given the overwhelming odds, facing 40 heavily armed individuals traveling in a well-equipped convoy, with the additional complication of Parenti's pursuit creating an unpredictable three-way dynamic, Logan asks Hana directly whether she believes she has the capability and resources to handle such a formidable challenge. The question hangs heavy in the air, requiring Hana to assess not only her own abilities and preparation, but also to consider whether the alliance with Leu and whatever resources he might bring to bear will be sufficient to overcome the odds stacked against them. The two operatives are coordinating the details of their upcoming mission. Hana reveals her tactical approach. She intends to infiltrate the trailer by targeting the truck's tires positioned in front of it. When Eun-seong questions whether her plan involves delaying the entire convoy until Giulio Parenti makes his appearance, Hana responds with absolute certainty that this is not her intention. She then methodically breaks down her three-phase operation. Phase 1 involves detonating a landmine upon Mesa's arrival. Phase 2 requires her to exploit the resulting chaos to slip undetected into the trailer. Phase 3 consists of waiting for Giulio Parenti to arrive at the scene. Hana emphasizes her commitment to using minimal force, seeking only to create sufficient distraction to secure her entry into the trailer. Following Hana's comprehensive briefing, Eun-seong offers words of caution regarding her safety. He admits that his feelings for her have grown stronger than he initially expected, and urges her to make her final preparations for the mission. As they monitor their intended targets, Eun-seong confirms Parenti's presence among the group. After a brief countdown sequence, they execute the first phase of their plan. However, they immediately detect signs of life within the trailer, indicating the presence of occupants inside. Reacting swiftly to this development, Hana begins her ascent up the exterior of the trailer to gain entry. She leaps through the opening and immediately opens fire on the occupants inside. During the firefight, she finds herself nearly overwhelmed by one of the men, but Eun-seong's perfectly timed intervention saves her from being overpowered. Hana expresses her appreciation to Eun-seong for eliminating that particular threat. While they maintain their position, waiting for the second target to arrive, Eun-seong provides a tactical update. He reports that their target is approaching at high velocity and warns that a significant impact collision is imminent. In the midst of their operation, Hana overhears a man conducting a phone conversation within the trailer. The man expresses his unwillingness to acquire Parenti's merchandise and voices his regret over entering into any contractual agreement. As Hana continues to eavesdrop on this conversation, the predicted violent collision occurs, causing the entire trailer to shake violently and throwing Hana off balance. Eun-seong's voice comes through her communication device, repeatedly calling her name with growing concern for her well-being and safety. After several moments, Hana manages to regain consciousness and open her eyes. Still trembling from the impact, she removes the earpiece from her ear and prepares her firearm for potential confrontation. A man approaches the trailer's entrance door, and Hana immediately trains her weapon on him while issuing a stern warning. Rather than complying with her command or retreating to safety, the man makes an unexpected move. He reaches out and grabs her weapon, deliberately pressing it against his own forehead while challenging her to pull the trigger. He makes the disturbing declaration that he has been eagerly awaiting death. Without warning, the man launches a sudden and brutal attack, striking Hana with enough force to render her unconscious. As she collapses, he lifts her unconscious form with clearly sinister intentions. He announces his decision to take her with them, stating his plan to determine whether she might prove useful for their purposes. Hana slowly regains consciousness, her mind gradually clearing from the haze of whatever had rendered her unconscious. As awareness returns to her, she becomes acutely aware of the uncomfortable restriction around her wrists. Her hands are tightly bound, the rope or restraints cutting into her skin as she tries to move them. The realization hits her like a cold wave. She's been captured and restrained. Panic immediately floods through her system, her heart rate accelerating as the gravity of her situation becomes clear. Without hesitation, she begins to struggle frantically against the restraints that hold her captive, pulling and twisting her wrists in desperate attempts to free herself. Her movements are urgent and determined, driven by the primal instinct to escape from whatever danger she finds herself in. The man who had been responsible for bringing her to this location takes notice of her sudden awakening and her immediate reaction to fight against her bonds. Observing her quick transition from unconsciousness to active resistance, he comments with what seems to be a mixture of admiration and amusement. "It appears you have quite the quick reflexes." His tone suggests he's impressed by how rapidly she assessed her situation and began attempting to escape. As Hana looks up toward the source of the voice, her eyes widen in shock and recognition. The face staring back at her is one she knows well, though seeing it in person under these circumstances sends a chill through her. Standing before her is none other than Giulio Parenti himself, the very person she had been seeking, though certainly not under circumstances like these. With an expression that combines both fear and intense curiosity about her presence, Giulio begins his interrogation. He demands to know her identity, clearly suspicious of who she might be and what her intentions could be. He also questions whether she had been deliberately waiting for him inside the trailer, suggesting that her presence there was not coincidental, but rather part of some planned encounter. Hana confirms his suspicion, acknowledging that yes, she had indeed been waiting for him inside the trailer. However, before she can provide him with the explanation he's clearly seeking about her motivations and reasons for being there, she makes an unexpected and bold suggestion. With remarkable composure, given her precarious situation, she slyly recommends that he should remove his clothes. To justify this seemingly outrageous request, she explains her reasoning with calculated logic. She points out that she cannot possibly leave the bathroom in her current disheveled and disordered state, emphasizing how filthy and unkempt she must look after whatever ordeal has brought her to this point. Her suggestion, while shocking, appears to be part of some larger strategy she's employing. Giulio's reaction to her bold suggestion is immediate and intense. Anger flashes across his features as he reaches out and grasps her chin firmly. His grip forceful and controlling. His voice filled with rage and suspicion, he demands to know if she's attempting to flirt with him in this dire situation. The very idea seems to both anger and perplex him, as if he cannot fathom why someone in her position would make such advances. He continues his aggressive questioning, asking whether she seriously expects to leave this place alive, given the circumstances she finds herself in. His words carry an implicit threat, making it clear that her life hangs in the balance, and that her current behavior might be sealing her fate. Remarkably, Hana appears completely unbothered by his threatening demeanor and ominous words. With a confidence that seems almost supernatural given her bound state, she responds to his threats with assurance rather than fear. She tells him that he will find himself in need of her assistance sooner than he thinks, suggesting that she possesses something valuable that he will eventually require. Giulio's response to her continued boldness is swift and aggressive. He thrusts his fingers into her mouth without warning, the action both invasive and threatening. As he does this, he delivers a harsh warning, telling her that if this is what she truly desires, she had better get accustomed to such situations. His words carry the clear implication that worse treatment awaits her if she continues on this path. He presses his body closer to hers, deliberately invading her personal space in an intimidating display of dominance and control. The physical proximity is meant to frighten and overwhelm her, to make her realize the vulnerability of her position and the power he holds over her in this moment. Their tense encounter is suddenly interrupted when another man bursts into the room with obvious urgency and frustration. This newcomer immediately demands to know what Giulio is doing and why he hasn't yet carried out his apparent plans to execute her. His tone suggests that there was a predetermined course of action that Giulio was supposed to follow, and he's clearly frustrated by the delay. Giulio attempts to provide an explanation for the situation, trying to justify his actions and the current circumstances. He claims that his original intention had been to eliminate her because she had openly admitted to coming here with the purpose of killing him. This revelation adds another layer to the complexity of the situation, suggesting that both parties had come with violent intentions toward each other. However, Giulio continues his explanation by stating that she had persistently made advances toward him throughout their encounter, and these unexpected advances had led to their current complicated situation. His explanation suggests that her behavior had thrown him off his planned course of action and created this confusing dynamic between them. The other man initially exclaims in disbelief at Giulio's explanation, clearly finding the situation as bizarre and unexpected as it sounds. However, his tone quickly shifts when he notices Giulio's piercing, intimidating gaze directed at him. The change in the man's demeanor suggests that he recognizes the danger in questioning Giulio too aggressively and decides to adjust his approach accordingly. Meanwhile, Hana finds herself in the position of trying to understand a conversation that is being conducted primarily in Italian. While she cannot fully comprehend the specific words being exchanged between the two men, her instincts tell her that something unusual and significant is unfolding. She senses the tension and urgency in their voices, even if she cannot grasp the exact meaning of their words. As the two men continue their discussion, Hana recognizes an opportune moment and decides to take advantage of their distraction. With careful, deliberate movements designed not to draw attention to herself, she manages to discreetly work at the rope that binds her hands. Through persistent effort and skillful manipulation, she successfully cuts through the restraints that have been holding her captive. The other man, having apparently grown impatient with the delay and confusion, decides to take decisive action. He reaches into his pocket and draws out a gun, making it clear that he intends to resolve the situation quickly and definitively. With grim determination, he vows to complete the job swiftly, suggesting that the original plan was indeed to kill Hana, and that he's prepared to carry it out immediately. As the armed man begins to approach Hana with clear, lethal intent, she demonstrates the quick reflexes that had been noted earlier. In a lightning-fast movement, she springs into action and manages to overpower him before he can react to her sudden freedom. With skill and determination, she wrestles the gun away from his grasp, turning the tables on her would-be executioner. Now armed and in control of the situation, Hana positions herself strategically. She points the gun at the man she has just disarmed, while simultaneously using the rope that had previously bound her to create a noose around his neck. The rope is now coiled around his throat, giving her another means of control over him, and demonstrating her resourcefulness in turning her former restraints into a weapon. From this position of newfound power, Hana issues a clear warning to Giulio, telling him not to come any closer. Her tone and demeanor make it evident that she is serious about her threats and prepared to use both the gun and the rope to maintain control of the situation. She has effectively reversed the power dynamic that existed just moments before. With authority and conviction, Hana explains her presence and her motivations to both men. She makes it clear that her determination and sense of purpose brought her to this location specifically to confront Giulio. She emphasizes that nothing will deter her from completing the mission that has driven her to take such extreme risks and put herself in such danger. To emphasize her seriousness and maintain control over the situation, Hana tightens the rope slightly around the disarmed man's neck. This action causes him to cry out in pain, demonstrating both her willingness to use force and her complete control over the situation. The man's scream serves as a clear warning to Giulio about what could happen if he doesn't cooperate. Giulio, now fully understanding that he has no choice but to work with her, acknowledges his position and asks what specifically she wants from him. His question shows that he's prepared to listen to her demands and potentially cooperate with her plans, recognizing that resistance would be futile given her current advantage. Hana's final response is both resolute and clear in its terms. She states definitively that she wants his help in her mission, establishing the foundation for what could become an unlikely alliance. In return for his cooperation and assistance, she makes a solemn promise to bring the imposter to justice, suggesting that her ultimate goal aligns with exposing and stopping whoever has been masquerading as Giulio Parenti. The police have arrived at the scene of the collision. One officer approaches Eun-sung to inquire about the proper handling of the bodies that were discovered at the location. Eun-sung discreetly passes money to the officer and instructs him to dispose of the bodies as he sees fit. He explains to the officer that the deceased individuals are merely criminals, and the police department can claim full responsibility for their apprehension. During this time, it becomes clear that Parenti and his criminal organization have successfully escaped with both the weapons box and the trailer filled with cocaine. Eun-sung has one remaining task to complete. He must wipe clean the mobile phone belonging to one of the dead individuals. As Eun-sung bends down to accomplish this final task, Taejoon unexpectedly arrives at the scene. Eun-sung remarks that he has not encountered Taejoon since the incident where Hana delivered him a severe beating. Without hesitation, Eun-sung draws his weapon and confronts Taejoon with a pointed question. Why did he fail to reveal earlier that Hana and Dui are twin siblings? Taejoon responds by stating that he did not consider this information to be significant or relevant. Eun-sung, while cocking his gun and directing it toward Taejoon, declares that he requires detailed information about Hana Lee. In his defense, Taejoon explains that Sergeant Hana is currently living a normal civilian life, with Dui being her only remaining family member. He elaborates that this familial bond is the reason she cannot abandon her brother and has traveled such a great distance to find him. However, Eun-sung makes it clear that the decision regarding what to do next rests entirely with him. While maintaining his aim at Taejoon, Eun-sung warns him that he must begin providing more useful assistance if he wishes to avoid serious consequences. As Eun-sung lowers his weapon and begins to depart, Taejoon poses a direct question. Are you interested in Hana? Eun-sung's response reveals his intentions. The sergeant is indeed an enticing woman, which is why I'm contemplating adjusting my plans. Meanwhile, at the location where Giulio Parenti has taken Hana, he questions her once again regarding her intentions to capture the individual who has been impersonating him. Parenti observes that it may already be too late for such actions, considering that the individuals from Mesa were eliminated by a sniper at the collision scene. Hana expresses her deep frustration, lamenting that she never received the opportunity to interrogate these individuals as she had originally planned. She proceeds to reveal crucial information. Her brother has been actively tracking the imposter, and by combining their efforts, they can successfully uncover the true mastermind orchestrating all these events. Hana then discloses a particularly troubling rumor that has been circulating, that Giulio ordered the assassination of a Korean intelligence service agent who happens to be her brother. This revelation clearly surprises Giulio, who immediately inquires whether this would mean that her brother is already dead. Hana responds with firm conviction, asserting that her brother is still alive. She explains that this is precisely the reason she sought out Giulio, to determine whether he was responsible for her brother's death, and to ensure he was not involved. Internally, Hana recognizes the critical importance of gaining Giulio's trust, understanding that the success of her entire mission depends on establishing this trust. To demonstrate his good intentions and establish trust, Parenti quickly unbuttons his shirt and offers it to Hana. He then gives specific instructions to one of his associates, Romano, directing him to bring a glass of wine for Hana in exchange for the release of Lorenzo. While Hana is understandably cautious about trusting them enough to consume any beverage they provide, Giulio manages to convince her by insisting that her thirst must be satisfied. Despite her parched throat creating genuine discomfort, Hana cannot eliminate the suspicion that they may have tampered with the drink. She remains uncertain whether the beverage might be poisoned or contain some form of drug. Nevertheless, after careful consideration, Hana decides to take the calculated risk. She kicks Lorenzo aside and quickly snatches the glass from Romano's hands. She maintains direct eye contact with Giulio as she drinks the wine completely. Almost immediately after consuming the beverage, dizziness begins to overwhelm her, and she starts to stagger unsteadily before ultimately collapsing to the ground. It becomes evident that Giulio and his associates had already made arrangements for a doctor to attend to her medical needs. Giulio issues comprehensive orders for her complete medical treatment, ensuring that no aspect of her care and recovery will be left to chance or overlooked. Hana finds herself trapped in a vivid and disturbing nightmare. In this dream, she witnesses someone making a bone-chilling promise of revenge against her, the words echoing with malicious intent. The nightmare is so intense and realistic that it jolts her awake abruptly, leaving her disoriented and shaken by its vividness. As consciousness returns, Hana struggles to make sense of her current surroundings. She notices that her wounds have been carefully tended to by someone, suggesting she hasn't been left to suffer alone. The realization hits her that she must have been administered sleeping pills, which would explain both her deep sleep and the grogginess she's experiencing upon waking. "What an awful nightmare," she exclaims aloud, her voice carrying the weight of someone who desperately wishes to erase such disturbing memories from her mind entirely. The nightmare forces Hana to confront painful memories from her past. She reflects on her time working as a Valentine's Day agent, a period in her life that would come to haunt her. During this time, her actions directly led to a man being imprisoned. What followed was a cascade of tragedy that would forever change both their lives. While this man spent 7 grueling months behind bars, his enemies seized the opportunity to hunt down every single member of his family. One by one, they were brutally murdered in what can only be described as a systematic campaign of revenge against him. When the imprisoned man learned of his family's fate, his grief and rage were beyond measure. He directed his fury toward Hana, the person he held responsible for setting these tragic events in motion. He hurled vicious curses at her, his voice filled with raw hatred as he made solemn vows to seek revenge against her. His promises weren't empty threats spoken in the heat of the moment, but calculated declarations of future retribution. Initially, Hana's response to these threats was dismissive and arrogant. She met his vows of revenge with nothing more than a contemptuous snort, treating his words as the empty ravings of a desperate man. However, as time passed and the weight of what had transpired began to settle, an uneasy feeling began to creep over her. The confidence she had initially displayed started to erode, replaced by a growing sense of unease and paranoia. As the situation continued to escalate and the man's threats felt increasingly real, Hana found herself consumed with worry for her loved ones. She began checking on her brother daily, driven by an overwhelming need to ensure his safety. Every day became a routine of verification and protection, as she couldn't shake the fear that the man's revenge might extend to those closest to her. Eventually, news reached her that the man had been killed in some form of revenge scheme, presumably related to his own criminal activities. Upon hearing of his death, Hana experienced something she had never felt before: relief upon learning of someone's death. This moment of relief, while understandable given the circumstances, came with a heavy psychological cost. It was a harrowing experience that fundamentally shattered her sense of human dignity and moral certainty. This moment of disillusionment was something she never wished to experience again, yet it continued to haunt her in her dreams, manifesting as the nightmare she had just endured. Now, in her current predicament, Hana draws strength from these painful memories. She remains determined to protect her brother at all costs, using this resolve to stay focused on her current situation. However, her immediate and most pressing concern is finding something to eat. She recognizes that she needs to maintain her physical strength before she can devise any new plan to convince Parenti, the man who currently holds her captive. As she contemplates what might have happened to her clothes and considers her next moves, Hana rises from the bed where she had been resting. Taking a moment to reflect on her situation, She admits to herself that she knew from the beginning that Parenti would prove to be a formidable and challenging adversary. However, she confesses that she never anticipated the true extent of his instability and unpredictable nature. What puzzles her most is trying to understand why Parenti is keeping her alive. His motivations remain unclear to her, and it certainly doesn't appear that he will be accepting her offer anytime soon. The uncertainty of her situation weighs heavily on her mind as she tries to piece together his intentions. When Hana opens the door to leave her room, she unexpectedly collides with Lorenzo, the very same man she had tied up during their earlier encounter. The collision is sudden and catches both of them off guard. Recognizing him immediately, Hana quickly offers a sincere apology for their previous confrontation, hoping that this gesture of contrition might help establish some form of rapport between them. Her strategy is clear. She wants to build enough trust with Lorenzo that she might be able to extract valuable information about Parenti and his plans. However, Lorenzo's response is far from welcoming. He sternly instructs her to return to her room immediately and issues a clear warning against any funny business or attempts at escape or manipulation. His tone is authoritative and leaves no room for negotiation. Despite his stern demeanor, Hana persists in trying to engage with him. She reassures Lorenzo that she fully intends to be a model hostage, emphasizing that she has no plans to cause trouble or attempt any escape. She then makes a direct plea for him to bring her something to eat, explaining that she's absolutely famished and hasn't had any food throughout the entire day. Her request is genuine. Her body desperately needs nourishment. Lorenzo shows initial reluctance to help her, clearly weighing the pros and cons of her request. After some internal contemplation and consideration of the situation, he reveals that their food supplies are quite limited. Despite this constraint, he makes the decision to reluctantly allow Hana to follow him, presumably to where food might be available. As Lorenzo turns to lead the way, he discreetly performs an action that Hana doesn't notice. He connects a small microphone device to communicate with Giulio, effectively enabling Giulio to eavesdrop on their entire conversation from wherever he is located. This covert action suggests a level of surveillance and monitoring that Hana is unaware of. As they begin to walk together, Lorenzo's curiosity about Hana's true identity gets the better of him. He questions whether she might be a professional assassin or possibly a North Korean spy, clearly trying to piece together her background and the skills she demonstrated during their earlier encounter. Hana responds to his questions with honesty, denying both of his assumptions about her identity. Hers? She reveals that her background includes time spent as a member of the South Korean Special Forces, which would explain her combat skills and tactical knowledge. However, she's quick to admit that her current situation is far less impressive. She describes herself as nothing more than a baeksu, which is Korean slang for an unemployed person. This admission reveals her current vulnerable state and perhaps explains why she was willing to take on such a dangerous mission. Meanwhile, in another location, Giulio sits comfortably while listening in on their entire conversation through the microphone Lorenzo has activated. As he eavesdrops, he casually lights a cigarette, appearing relaxed and in control of the situation. His ability to monitor their conversation gives him a significant advantage in understanding Hana's true nature and intentions. As Lorenzo and Hana continue their discussion about her identity and background, the weather outside begins to change dramatically. Heavy rain starts to pour down, creating an ominous atmosphere that seems to mirror the tension of the situation. The sound of the rain is soon joined by another concerning development, the arrival of several cars on the scene. The timing of these arrivals, combined with the stormy weather, suggests that new players may be entering the already complex situation, potentially complicating Hana's predicament even further.
Thank you for watching this episode of our manhwa recap. We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of this story with us. If you loved the content, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing manhwa recaps. See you in the next episode.